Welcome back to Basics and Beyond, episode 48, and this is going to be a good one. This is about GLP-1s, and when we talk about GLP-1s, it's Ozempic, it's Wegovy, it's Zepbound, Mounjaro, Retatrutide, which is a new one, and that's actually a third generation. So we're talking about all of those, and this is not a should you do it or, oh my God, you shouldn't do it. That's not what I'm here for. What I want to talk about is what nobody's necessarily talking about or what you generally aren't seeing. I want to talk about, if you choose to do this, how you can do it in a way that's going to be healthier for you, and how, when the time comes, you need to get off of it. Because yes, you need a plan to get off of this medication too. I know you've seen the commercials. I've seen the commercials. It just started happening probably a few months ago where people are saying, hey, you could be on this forever. Really? Could you? Should you? Personally, myself, I see a lot of downsides. We'll call it that. Downsides to thinking you should be on this forever, right? Because it's supposed to be a weight loss drug, right? So if it's a weight loss drug, actually, it wasn't meant to be a weight loss drug. It was meant for type 2 diabetics to help their diabetes and their insulin sensitivity, right? However, now that we are using them as weight loss drugs, we need to really focus on and think about, how are we using them? What are we doing when they're using them? Are we using them appropriately? And are we doing what we need to do in conjunction with using them? And what's our plan for getting off of them? And this podcast for me was sparked by seeing some people that I know, seeing other people on social media, but really about people in my close-knit community of friends and people on the rim of that friendship who I'm like, man, it might be time to come off. And who's telling them to come off of this drug? It's important to come off of this drug. And part of the reason that this kind of sparked this conversation in me, and this kind of, I don't want to say rage, but this kind of frustration in me, is that before all these drugs came out, I wanted to be as skinny as possible. I wanted the number to be a certain number on the scale. I wanted to look a certain way. I was anorexic and bulimic, and I didn't know it for a long time. And what did that do to me? It impacted my thyroid health. It impacted my hormones. It impacted my bone health. It impacted my ability to think, brain fog. It impacted my metabolism, right? Because I was just not eating food and I was using exercise to binge. That was my bulimia, was exercise. So having that be part of my story, having that be my history, makes me really concerned when I see so many people being on this drug and not having a plan to get off. Because once you get super skinny and once you get to that point, you can look really skeletal. And you've seen this with celebrities. I've seen it with celebrities lately. And everyone walks around and says, oh my God, you look so good. You look so healthy. It doesn't look healthy to be a skeleton. We're not supposed to look like. We're supposed to have muscles. We're supposed to be able to do all the things we want to do. And when we diet down, whether it's using GLP-1s or anything else, and we don't do certain things while we're doing that to keep muscle, to build muscle, to make sure that we're staying healthier, we put ourselves in a worse metabolic state when we're off of it. And for people to think they should be on this forever and ever, it makes me angry and frustrated and sad. Because that's not what these medications were built for. And that's not what health is supposed to look like. You don't look healthy when you look like a skeleton. And it's more than that. You're not healthy. You're shortening your life. You're shortening your ability to do the things in life that you want to do, because we have muscle on our body for a reason. We need to have muscle as we get older. Let's think a little bit more further out into the future than just the next couple of months and I want to lose 10 pounds or 20 pounds or whatever the heck it is. Let's think about overall health. And as a coach, my job is to help people use any tool, whether it's GLP-1s, whether it's supplementation of any kind, whether it's medication, the right way, the healthy way, the way that keeps you healthy for the rest of your life, not dependent on a drug forever, and not, oh, it's something I can do just for 6 months or a year. It has to fit your lifestyle. It has to fit so you can be healthy for the rest of your life. And that is where this podcast is coming from. So I'm just going to give a quick overview about how these things work, about how GLP-1s work, because I know some people know and some people don't. So this might be a reminder for you. But these drugs actually work on receptors in your brain and in your gastrointestinal tract, right? In your stomach, in your intestines. So what they do, there are three big things really that happen. They work on blood sugar control. So they signal the pancreas to release insulin when blood sugar is high, okay? 2, appetite suppressant. You probably know this. They also slow your digestion and act directly on your brain's appetite center, right? Those hunger cues. And this is where people talk about the food noise or the food chatter, right? So yes, these drugs address that noise that you're hearing when it comes to food. And also, there's a little bit here where we do see that there is some cardiovascular support. So research is showing that there are real reductions in major cardiovascular events like heart attacks and strokes. Probably because we're managing our insulin levels better. And people don't talk about how insulin and fat accumulation and things like that and inflammation really directly impacts cardiovascular health. So there's a huge connection there. That's probably why this is occurring, and we see it with these drugs. So there's a real legitimate upside to taking these drugs. So I want to say that before we move on. Okay? There is an upside, and there are definitely circumstances and situations where people can definitely benefit from those drugs. So let's talk about the side effects that you probably already know about. We talked about some good things that can happen, right? Everybody knows the good things. They talk about that all the time. These are probably the side effects you've already heard of. So people can experience nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation is a big thing, loss of appetite. Okay, I know we just talked about that as a benefit, and even though that's a good thing, you can, right? If we suppress our appetite too much, it can actually go too far. Too much of a good thing, right? We've talked about that. So you can experience fatigue and dizziness. Kind of makes sense. If you're not eating enough, you're definitely going to be fatigued. And those are usually those kind of 1, 2, like handful of things are usually the worst when you're starting the medication or when you're increasing or titrating that dose up. This part your doctor will tell you about. Guess what? It's the next part that they usually won't tell you about. And this is close to my heart because my liver's a little sluggish. My liver is sluggish because of all the things I've done in terms of anorexia, bulimia, all those things. So your liver is impacted by being on one of these drugs. And here's what happens with most people who start these GLP-1s. We talked about this, right? Hunger switches off almost immediately. And most people are like, yes, great. This is amazing because we always talk about this, right? We talk about how do you lose weight? Don't eat as much. So hunger switches off, just barely eat, you'll lose the fat faster. And guess what? That is disastrous. That is not good because we don't want to lose fat super, super fast. And you'll see this, right? People have all of this skin left over and like all of these things. So the goal should be the same rate of fat loss as a person who is of healthy weight losing weight normally. Okay, so let's say, I'll give you an example. So if someone just has 10 extra pounds to lose, right? We want, even on these drugs, if you're looking to lose 50, 80, 100 pounds, we still want you to lose weight at the same rate of fat loss as a healthy person. Okay, we're talking about fat loss, right? The thing is, what you're actually doing if you're on these is you're just adding that benefit of that medication, okay? This isn't starvation. That's not what the medication should be doing. That's not how you should be using it. It's not about starving yourself. So In a genuinely healthy person, like we talked about, someone who just has a few pounds to lose, whatever, the liver can ramp up fatty acid oxidation during that kind of low calorie or deficit state. That's normal. That's something that your liver is really good at doing. It's supposed to. It ramps up that fatty acid oxidation. However, that ability depends heavily on your personal metabolic and mitochondrial health. Okay. So an obese, insulin resistant person isn't metabolically healthy. We know that, even if the drug is working. If that person slashes calories too fast, they can end up giving themselves a fatty liver. Okay? Because the liver can't accommodate what's happening. It can't, like we said, ramp up that fatty acid production. Okay? So if that person slashes calories too fast, you can actually harm your liver by giving yourselves non-alcoholic fatty liver, NAFLD, if you know the acronym, because your body can't handle the load. Your body can't handle it. Your liver can't handle it. NAFLD, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, is not good. And it's something that's very difficult to come back from. And this is why labs matter. And this is why a plan matters. We need to know where your liver function is before you even jump on the drug. And we need to be able to monitor your liver function while you are on the drug. And this is why, like I said, it's why it matters that you get labs done so you know where you're at. It's why it matters. It's why it matters that a plan matters. A plan matters. We have to have a plan. So in conjunction with your liver, let's talk about your gallbladder, because your gallbladder is directly connected to your liver function. So one of the ways these drugs shuts down hunger is by slowing down your motility. We're talking about poop. Okay. Basically, it slows down how fast things move through your digestive system. Okay, so it's your whole digestive system. And we see evidence of slow motility when we see people's ability to have bowel movements slow down, right? Maybe you used to have bowel movements every day and now it's every other day, or now it's every third day. So slower motility means your gallbladder is sluggish and it's delaying bile release. Okay, so bile that sits too long, so your gallbladder holds on to bile. Your liver produces bile very slowly, and the gallbladder is the storage tank for that bile. If your bile sits too long, it gets thick, and it gets thick with cholesterol, because your liver produces cholesterol. It's supposed to. So the bile and cholesterol get placed into your gallbladder. If it sits there too long, notice how I'm repeating myself. If it sits there too long, it gets thick. Cholesterol gets thick. And that combination, impaired mobility, right? Or motility, impaired motility, plus thick, sluggish bile, sets you up for what? Gallstones and gallbladder disease. So if you're experiencing gallstones, you need to look at how your liver is functioning and how can you move that bile out of your gallbladder, right? So this isn't information just for people on GLP-1s, right? This is information for people who have a sluggish liver. And here's the thing, your cholesterol labs are going to show that your cholesterol is high. Let's take a look at your liver, see what your liver's doing, right? There's a connection. So if you're on a GLP-1, you're going to want to look at supplementation to support bile flow and liver health. There are lots of ways. There's ox bile, there's TUDCA, there's supplements that NAC is another one that can really support liver health. And most doctors don't bring it up. Personal story, I have 2 or 3 friends and dozens of other people I've talked to who have had their gallbladder removed, and they are on no supplementation to support bile. They're not getting any supplements for bile, and it's super easy. And everyone who doesn't have a gallbladder should have some sort of bile supplement on board. It's the truth of it. So we talked about the liver. We talked about the gallbladder. Those two things are highly connected. The other piece to the puzzle is your thyroid. Now, we know the thyroid is up here. Everybody talks about it. It looks like a little butterfly, which is not. But anyway, it's an organ here. And the thyroid really is your kind of energy manager in your body. Okay, so let's talk about how we get from that gut part up here to the thyroid. So follow me with this. Slow motility, which we've talked about, can also affect your thyroid, which most people don't talk about. Not directly, obviously, it's that downstream effect, that domino effect. Slower motility is linked to estrogen dominance. I just had a conversation with a client yesterday. We're getting her labs done, and she's on hormonal birth control. And she said, should I even get my hormones done? And I'm like, yeah, you should. Because if you're on hormonal birth control, your labs, your hormones are going to be tanked. But if we see estrogen high, and we know she has endometriosis, if we see that estrogen high, that tells us that we have some estrogen dominance going on, and she's probably recycling estrogen in her body. Estrogen is directly linked to the thyroid because high estrogen or estrogen dominance, high in relation to progesterone, all those kinds of things, raises thyroid binding globulin. Okay, you're like, I don't even know what that is. That's okay. Here's what it means. Thyroid, if you have more of that globulin, that binding globulin, it means more of your T3 and T4 gets bound up. And T3 and T4 are your active thyroid markers, okay? If those get bound up, that means they don't work. So your usable thyroid hormone, the thing that your cells need, isn't there. There's not enough. So you can look good on paper, like your labs can look great, and you can still experience the effects of low thyroid function. And this is what we talked about when we talked initially about those things you've heard of on GLP-1s, where you can experience fatigue, low energy. All of those things are directly related to thyroid. So this is exactly why you need to get labs done to look at your thyroid panel and the full panel. Get your T3, T4, TSH, TPAOB, APOB. Let me get that right. Those, the reverse T3, free T3, free T4, all of those, which is a full thyroid panel, are really important, not just your TSH, because we need to make sure that your thyroid is still functioning. Because here's the thing, we know the GLP-1, we know what doctors tell us, what everybody tells us, what the commercials tell us. Slows down your motility, we know that. And it turns off the noise in your head. And we need to talk about what that means. And these are the physiological effects, your thyroid, your liver, and your gallbladder. And here's the thing, how do we help that? We look at our nutrition. So if you're using a GLP-1 and you're still training hard, your nutrition has to support that training. Now, here's the catch. If you're on a GLP-1, you need to be strength training. You need to be strength training to keep as much muscle as you can, because that muscle is metabolically active. It helps you burn calories even when you're not doing that activity. So if you're still training, which you should be, you need to make sure that you're eating enough to support your training. Under eating while training hard and adding in the GLP-1 puts a ton of stress on your central nervous system, which is your brain. Part of it is your brain. And we know that your brain kind of controls everything, and you're going to see that in your thyroid, your liver. Okay, so you can't out-train a calorie deficit that's already too aggressive, because the drug is doing some of that work for you. The drug is already, we talked about this, those calories are lower because your hunger cues are diminished. You can't out-train that deficit. So this is where you need to be preserving your muscle mass. This is what I just talked about. Muscle mass, preserving it, does become a priority. So you can't just watch the number on the scale go down. You have to look at, and this is what I was talking about, this is what cued me to have this conversation. We don't want you coming out of this looking like a skeleton. We need to keep as much muscle on your body as we can, because the number on the scale doesn't tell us that you've kept muscle, okay? We need to keep muscle. So, have you noticed, if you're on a GLP-1 or you've been looking at them or you've been paying attention because they're everywhere, most of the information I just gave you, you're not hearing. You're not hearing it in commercials. The drug companies aren't telling you this, and your doctors aren't telling you this. Why? Because your doctor doesn't need to know all this. Your doctor's just trying to get the dose right, okay? So Maybe they get it right and maybe they don't. They should start out as low as possible and titrate up, but they have to be looking at your labs. They have to be talking to you about what you're doing with your life. I don't know, your doctor might not get the dose right. I guarantee you, most doctors, I'm sure there's some, aren't going to talk to you about what I'm talking to you about: fatty liver disease, the gallbladder risk, the thyroid issues. They probably won't mention being on TUDCA or ox bile because most doctors don't know what it is. True story. I have a doctor, I have a new one. I went to see her a few months ago and I told her that I was on TUDCA and she didn't know what it was. And she's not brand new. She didn't know what it was. So you need to know. You need to understand what is going on and the downstream effects or the domino effects of your GLP-1. And you need to be advocating for your thyroid because, like I said, just getting a TSH in those labs isn't going to tell you anything. Another thing doctors aren't going to do, they're not going to coach you on your exercise or how to preserve your muscle. That's not what they do. A coach does that. And that's not a knock on doctors. It's just their lane. Their lane is come to me. I will give you a medication. I will whatever. I'll look at you. I'll give you medication. I'll figure out what's going on or what's not going on, and you leave. Doctors, I heard this from a reputable source, and I've heard it for the last few years because of insurance companies, because of all these other things, whatever it is, they need to get their time with you down as little as possible. I just talked to someone yesterday in the medical field who was like, yeah, insurance companies would like to see you in a doctor's office for 5 minutes. That's it. They want you in and out. And that's doing us a disservice, and that's doing doctors a disservice. Okay? So how do you make a plan for GLP-1s? How do you make a plan for while you're on them? How do you plan and what do you do to get off of them? What do? You talk to a coach who knows how to do it. Because what you don't want to do, number one, GLP-1s are not designed for long-term treatments. Number two, if you stop taking the medication without a plan, your appetite is going to come back, and it's going to come back fast, and it's going to come back hard. And most of the weight, and you can talk to people, you can read about it, most of the weight typically comes back with it because your body's been relying on this thing that we're injecting into it to keep the hunger at bay. We haven't done anything. And by the way, you've been in a calorie deficit for so long, your body's starving for food. So obviously that hunger is going to come back. That appetite is going to be raging. And it's really hard to not feed it. It's really hard. And I know that because that's what I went through after I did my bodybuilding show. I was like, oh my God, 2 months of starving, even though I was eating a lot of food. And it was very hard to not overeat. It was very hard to not eat a bunch of stuff I shouldn't eat and gain back a bunch of fat. And that's exactly why you need a plan to get off the GLP-1 as much as you need a plan while you're on it. So the exit plan is built the same way the entry plan is. Number one, nutrition that supports your body. Number two, resistance training to protect the muscle you have. It protects your sleep. It protects your stress management and labs that tell you what's actually going on inside you. Okay. So it's all those things. It's all those foundational things that we talk about that you need to look at before you get on it, while you're on it, and when you're getting off of it, because you're not meant to be on this medication forever. You're meant to use it as a bridge while you build the habits and the physiology that move you forward. Let me say that again. You're not meant to be on this medication forever. You are meant to use it as a bridge while you're building those habits and those lifestyle routines that are going to keep you healthy for the rest of your life. This is kind of just that jump start, okay? It's a jump start. So, like I said in the beginning, I'm not against, this isn't a should or shouldn't. I'm telling you, GLP-1s do have their place. They can be an incredible tool. I have a couple of clients on them, right? I know that they can be really helpful. I also know they're not the magic. They're not the magic pill. They're not the silver bullet. I tell you, honestly, if it was, I'd be on one. If they were super healthy, if I needed it, right? If it's a magic pill, man, why wouldn't you? but they're not. And they're not a replacement for the foundational work of nutrition, movement, strength training, sleep, stress, all of those things that you need a foundation of. Because here's the real truth. There's no solution in life. There's trade-offs. There's intentional choices. Every intentional choice you make has a trade-off. Every unintentional choice you make has a trade-off. And you deserve to know what they are before you make the decision, not after you make the decision. So if you're on one of these medications or you're thinking about it, hopefully you're listening to this, right? But you need to get someone in your corner who's going to tell you the whole picture, not just give you the dose that you need for your body and walk away. It's important that you have the education that you need. And I say this all the time because I spent decades of my life not knowing what was going on with my body because no one told me. It's important for you to be your own advocate. It's also important for me to let you know that if this has raised any questions for you, if you're thinking about a GLP-1, if you're on a GLP-1, or you're just like, okay, Laura, I didn't understand that part about the thyroid or the liver or whatever it was, I am here for you. I am in your corner. I am here for you to give you all the information that you need. I am on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, here on the podcast, on YouTube, on Spotify. I want to help you use every tool at your disposal, including these medications, but I want to help you in a way that keeps you healthy for the long term, not just for the next dose or for the next week or for the next month. That's my job. That's my passion, is to help you, as I've always said, rise and redefine yourself through all stages of your life. And maybe this is a stage where you need to use a GLP-1. Maybe it's not. I can help you answer that question, and I really want to help you. So go ahead and re-listen if you want. Go ahead and respond, ask me questions, comment, find me on social media, find me on my webpage, and we can talk about this. I'm so happy that you came today. I know this was a little longer than normal, but it's a really important topic, and I wanted to make sure that we talked about it. I want you to build a body that is going to carry you through your life and help you do the things that you want to do, the things that make you happy. I want you to rise and redefine yourself in a way that supports everything that you want to do. So let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to list some resources in the show notes so that you know where to find me, and you know where I grabbed some of this so you can look at some information and some research, because that's important. Like I said, you got to self-advocate. So thanks for coming today. That is the end of episode 48. I appreciate you being here. If you need me, let me know. Go out there and rise and redefine yourself today. And we'll see you on the next episode.